Welcome back to Entrepreneurial Shades of Gray. We're so excited that you're with us today. I'm Chelsey Sayasan. This is my co-host, Dani Dials, with us. And today we're learning about what it takes to be behind the scenes, but to be in control and keep these running.
Yes, I'm so excited about our guest today, Chelsey. She's such a boss, and she really works with some amazing companies to help them just communicate with authenticity. And when I tell you, when the pressure is on, she's the girl that a lot of these companies turn to. So I hope that you will help us to give a warm welcome to our guest, Miss Jennifer Jenkins. She's the founder of JJPR.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. So much that I would just love to talk about because you've made such a respected name for yourself with what you've done with JJPR. But before all of that, you were just a small town girl with a big vision. Can you take us back and tell us about that?
Yeah, it's funny to think back. It's actually been right around 30 years that my husband and I moved here. We moved here right after college, got married. His job brought us here. And I started working in the PR field, and not very long into moving down to South Alabama, I started working in the agency, advertising and PR agency at what used to be Sullivan St. Clair, and then was Red Square, and is now Good Giant. So that's kind of like how I got started in the agency world. At least, once we moved down here, it was really, I feel like it was a gift. I found like where I was supposed to be in terms of PR.
Yeah. What would you say were some of the things that shaped you as you were growing up to influence you to be the type of leader that you are today?
Well, it's really funny because both my dad and my grandmother own their own business. My grandmother, I grew up working in her restaurant. I grew up in Fayette, Alabama, really small town, less than 5,000 people. And from a very early age, I learned how to count change back to people the old-fashioned way. I, was cleaning tables, and, I also helped in my dad's shop. He owned kind of a mobile radio company that served oil and gas individuals, and before cell phones were really big and everyone had one in their pocket. So, I think kind of seeing them and the autonomy that it gave them, but I also saw the hard work that went behind it. Mm-hmm. So I do think those things really shaped it. My mom actually worked for Alabama Power, and, I think that I started seeing a lot of the things they did in the PR world and communications, and there was a woman that I'd always admired in my small town who did PR for the local hospital, and so those are kind of the things I think that kind of started that journey really early on.
Yeah.
So.
Let's go to the basics of PR. So for folks at home who don't necessarily understand it, I get your emails through my inbox all the time. I think we appreciate the work that you guys see.
Because we're in the industry.
Exactly. But for people at home, they may not be familiar with what you do. What are the basics of PR for you guys?
Yeah, well, it's really evolved so much so that I think that when I started almost 30 years ago, it was, more news release, one-to-one. I stood at the fax machine. I know y'all's fax numbers still today by heart. So it's evolved a lot and really become very integrated. But I think in terms of PR, it's really about telling our clients' stories in a way that's not over your head and, mumbo jumbo and lots of, jargon that no one understands, and really trying to, create, I think, a very authentic brand and perception of that client, because those are the things I think that we have to protect with all we have. And so that's kind of where it all starts. But it can be on any given day. We may be writing a news release, but most of the time we're reaching out to people like you guys at our media outlets and, talking about what you're working on, telling you about some of the things that we have going on with our clients, and just trying to, find where there's a fit or an opportunity. So, I think that trying to make that new and different is always fun for us, so much so not too long ago when you guys came out, we did an ATV tour out on Dauphin Island to talk about a lot of the work that they've done on the West End. And so things like that those are the types of things that we have to do differently and find a way to tell those stories that's going to be memorable and help our clients really to continue to build their brand reputation.
One of the things that I'm really fascinated by is that you do is crisis management, reputation management. And I don't know if people really understand unless they watch shows like Scandal that is a real industry.
Yes, I love that.
people really need those types of
do.
services. First, when you were younger, were you that friend when you and your friends got in trouble, you were like, hold on, y'all, I've got
Deep
this.
breath.
Cool and collected. Like, did you always have that in you to handle crisis?
Yes, and it's funny because even now today, as my children are growing up, but if there's any situation, even the mom friends will say, "Okay, Jennifer, can you craft some bullet points or something for us?" And it's funny. It just is part of, like, I guess, ingrained in me. But no, that's probably actually one of my. We can't really talk a lot of times about the crisis work and the behind the scenes reputation management work that we do, but truly, it's one of my favorite components of integrated public relations because I do see the difference that it can make. And it's also about prepping people, much like y'all were kind of getting me comfortable when I settled in here today. It's, teaching people how to talk and be themselves in front of the media and helping craft bullet points to stay on message. And a lot of times it is maybe a sensitive issue where we need to really work on how we message that in a way that's, again, going to be understandable because so many times the topics that we're talking about are very complex.
Yes, right.
And that requires us to do a lot of deep dive and studying about those issues, and I've read everything from environmental reports to medical reports to all kinds of things to try to understand and really be able to message that correctly.
Yeah. Right.
So
We live in a world now that expects everything to come now. I'm just curious, with the evolution of your business, you guys have tackled social media now, the growth of that, and how it's nearly feels like almost everything these days. So how do you now handle a specific situation like that in social media where I feel like in the past when you were faxing things, you at least probably had a couple hours to like get your thoughts together, but now people expect a statement now.
Right.
What is that like for y'all?
It is challenging. I'll say that social media truly is one of the reasons that we do so much crisis and reputation management work. That is, and to your point, we have to constantly monitor for our clients and being on the ready. I always say we don't do heart surgery. We don't have any hearts in the cooler. But when it comes to reputation management, it has gotten to where that's a 24/7 thing. And everyone has a megaphone with social media and, correcting things that you can. I think that's one of the things that I would say has been most interesting is trying to ensure that we're controlling the things we can and educating constituents and communities and people who are following those clients, and then understanding when, sometimes silence and letting others make those corrections and letting it play out. So there's a fine line with that. So
Is there ever a topic that is so great that you say, listen, find somebody else to do it?
yes, yes, politics.
Okay.
We don't do politics. Never wanted to do it. It's one of those things, but I have some really good consultants that I always refer those people to because there are some people who love it. They thrive in that environment. But that's just not one of the areas where I've wanted to be focused.
So also with JJPR, you full creative services. You
Yes.
offer that to people. What is it like and what does it take to lead a team of creatives?
Well, that's a really great question, and I think when you think about the evolution of my business and how it's come along is hiring people who do have that creative background and that expertise and knowing when, it's a little outside of my comfort zone. And I think finding those people who've worked with the top talent in, the industry and videographers and photographers and illustrators, there's so many facets to it. And oftentimes we, because everyone has a cell phone and we're able to capture that video and photography, but really understanding true production value and what goes into it and the skill, it's not something that everyone can do. We all have Canva and other tools at our fingertips today, but there are true skilled creatives that have worked a long time to hone their craft. And so ensuring that, it's on brand and on message is kind of where we work, but I really turn the reins over to them in terms of actually creating that beautiful product or messaging piece that we're going to be using for our clients.
What's so cool, literally a behind the scenes aspect that people at home don't see if they watch Studio 10, when you guys, your staff comes in with their clients, oftentimes your staff is off to the background, and before I can just kind of see out of the corner of my eyes, they're cheerleaders too, because getting on the news or doing something like this is definitely not an easy thing, even for us still today. But it's so cool to really see them coaching these clients, and at the heart of it, it's just to help grow their business.
Yeah, you're so right, and I think that's one thing. If we can be here for an interview that we've set up with you guys or for any of our clients with any media outlet, we want to make sure that we're kind of there hand in hand, reassuring them, kind of telling them what's going to happen, because a lot of times that's their very first time to go on air. We also have some seasoned clients that have done it many, many times, and it just comes very naturally. But for most people, even for myself, I'm a behind the scenes girl, so this was a little awkward today, not gonna lie.
She's like, are we gonna be recording?
I said, a video. Surprise. But truly, I think that helping them get comfortable, and sometimes just like walking them through what's gonna happen. We do the same thing for events and briefing, people who are gonna be speaking and kind of developing a run of show. I mean, there are so many aspects to it, and we just wanna make sure that, I think it helps make sure that they also have the best possible interview with you and deliver the right message, because it can be a little daunting and scary. Y'all make it look easy and beautiful and seamless.
This one still sweats sometimes. Don't let it fool you. I still get nervous. Promise.
Yes. So, just as a woman, speaking to other women who are inspired by what you do in leading a brand and building a company, what should they look out for as far as challenges, just being a woman in a space of business?
Yeah. I mean, there are still some challenges for us as women, I do believe, and it's, I think, recognizing those and being able to sometimes just, hey, here's where we're at. I really thought that not too long ago, I recognized that there was a situation where I could tell it was a little bit, maybe, man versus woman kind of thing. And I just kind of stepped back and let a coworker kind of take the lead, because I could tell that's where the comfort level was. That's not normally my MO, but I also understand that people have preconceived, their background shapes them a lot of times. And for us who've been working a long, long time in the field as women and balancing career and family, that may not have been that same experience for the women in their lives. And so I think just kind of being able to acknowledge that those bias do still exist, and I've never let it, I think you just can't let it get in the way. You can't, even though we'd like to get mad about it, that doesn't really do any good. I think it's really important just to embrace our strengths and know that those things exist, acknowledge them, but move on and kind of always take the high road when it comes to those things. It doesn't usually change perception to go toe-to-toe with people on things where there's a difference of opinion. Right. So I would say also, one thing that I didn't really realize is the capital investments in business. There's still a lot of bias against women who are going out to seek, financing for their business. Believe it or not, I've had a banker talk to me like I was asking for, an allowance, and I was like, gosh, this business has been this year's our 15th year in business, so it's really interesting to kind of see. I don't think that others would have had that exact kind of same conversation, or we have really strong numbers, if that would have gone the same way for a male in the industry. Right. So it's just interesting. You don't think they exist, and then when it happens to you, you're like, wait, that just happened. And I called another female entrepreneur friend, and she's like, oh yeah, that happened to me. And I was like, okay, I wasn't crazy. And so again, just acknowledging it, going in, being all buttoned up with your numbers and presenting a good case for yourself. We do have to do more still to this day. So
just amazes me. Like still, and I have so much respect for you guys who are still breaking barriers. All of it, all of these women who are still trying to say like, no, I belong here. I have a seat at the table too. And so it's just amazing on a local aspect too that you're still doing it, but standing up for yourself, your family, and your company. Yeah, awesome.
For sure. I'm curious, how do you take care of yourself? Because
That's a bad question, Dani.
Well, that's what I want to know. Do you need, like, is that something in your life that you're like, I need to do better at that? Because not just as a woman, but as an entrepreneur, we wear so many hats. And especially with what you're doing, people are reaching out to you when they've got a real problem.
Yeah.
So how do you set boundaries? Or are there boundaries in what you do?
No, I do think there are absolute boundaries. And I remember my daughter was really young. I have 3 children, and the boys are already out of college, and my daughter's in high school, but she was maybe like 6 or 7, and it was back in the day when we really were just having like email on our phones, and it was really busy. And I remember her saying, "Mom, you're always on the phone." And so after that time, I really tried not to be, unless I was sitting in front of my computer and very deliberately saying, I've got some work to do. I did not want to be on my phone. I try not to answer emails on the weekend. It's just really important for me to set those boundaries because I feel like I need to respond or do something. And so if I most of the time, clients know, text me if it's an emergency, and I have had 2 recently on the weekend, kind of speaking to that crisis and reputation management piece. But I try to really allow myself the weekends and to really just be fully present with my family. And, yesterday I got to see my daughter do a cheer competition. And, the emails were piling up, but they are not at that moment in time more urgent than what I was doing. I'm not the best, but have gotten better over the years at making time for things that do extend my help and help me. One of those, I do reformer Pilates every Tuesday, Thursday morning. Kind of, if you try to reach me between 8 and 9, I'm in a class. We one time had a vendor recently. She said, "Are you just now getting in?" I said, "No, I have a set boundary that I do this for myself every Tuesday and Thursday." And I go have a facial once a month. My skin's getting older, so we got to take care of it and keep it hydrated. So those are things I did not do when I was younger and did not make the time for. And now I'm kind of seeing, okay, I should have done more of that, because you feel guilty the time away from your children. I didn't want to go after hours because it was just more time away from them. So kind of looking back in hindsight, I would do more of that for myself.
Yeah, same. I think we learn as we grow, and she's the baby of the group, so I hope that you are soaking this in, because I'm in that space too where I'm learning to take better care of myself, and it's not even about physical; it's about mental. Right. If I can exercise and take better care of myself, I can handle stress better.
Yes,
I can
absolutely
think better, come up with creative solutions better. So I'm finding that as I read from other successful people, business people, that these are things that they have in common. Taking care of their mind, their body, and their soul.
And I have another one too, that this is so weird, but my oldest son, when he studies, he listens to instrumental only music. I cannot write anything with words on a song. I'm always in awe of our creatives and others in our office who can do that. But that is very calming to me. It's very centering. And so I think that finding those things that help you. I love the beach. I love it by myself, just to sit there by myself, toes in the sand, just staring out into nothing. And I think you were at the women's conference a couple of years ago when we had the speaker who talked about the different types of rest. And she actually,
I still pull from it
I do
to
too.
this
I
day.
bought her book. I was all in. She came in and she actually did a little thing with our team at one of our retreats, and to talk about the different types of rest. And when you really, it was just it left a mark on me about how important the different types of rest, and just sometimes catching up with an old girlfriend on the phone and laughing, and that's that social rest that you need. And so we need all different types, and so finding those that really energize you. When I leave Pilates, I feel completely centered. It just clears my head. I'm ready for the day.
Right. It's so funny you talked about the instrumental music recently. I'm talking about like within the last year. my husband will come home, and there's like instrumental jazz playing. He's like, "What is this? I've never listened to it in my life."
I love it.
I'll sweep the house, I'll clean, he'll help me, and there's just like instrumental jazz in the back. And he's like, "Okay, this is interesting." I guess I heard it from somebody else too, and I tried it. There is magic behind that.
There really is.
Yeah.
It's very, and actually, I had just a few minutes before I came to see you guys, and I was kind of looking over some of my notes that I'd made, and I turned on that instrumental music, and I just, I was like, it was very calming. I got my nerves down.
It helps with studying too. And
Yes.
I'm just gonna pat myself on the back.
Yes,
So
girl.
last night I finished my last 2 courses for college.
Yay!
Way to
And
go!
I listened, thank you. And I listened to music to help me to study. So it really instrumental music. So it really is calming, and it really does help in so many areas like of the brain.
Right.
But back to you. JJPR. We love it.
instrumental music.
We need to go deeper into
We
this
do.
topic,
We do.
obviously.
We do. So what is the dream for JJPR? Are you living it right now, or are you wanting to push it, grow it bigger and better? Or what is it?
And that's a great question. I mean, I feel like every day I'm living the dream. And, I think I've experienced, growth and then pulling back. And right now I feel like I'm where I'm meant to be. So, for what I think, just to continue being authentic to who we are and making sure that when we say yes to new clients, that it's a fit. Because when you get started, you're like, okay, I got to put dinner on the table. We got to keep the lights on. And so you're taking all the clients that come in. And then you realize you have a sweet spot in certain clients that are a fit for you and our agency and our team. And so I think for me, that's the dream, to continue that. Obviously, yes, one day I'd love to retire. It's not anywhere in the near future, but,
Do you think you really could retire and just like pass the baton?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would love that someday. My kids have absolutely said no. They've all 3 worked in the business doing something part-time or whatever, and they're like, we do not want to do this. And so I love it. You do you. So anyway, I absolutely would, because I do think it's important work, and it fuels me every day. I think just when you think you're getting bored, there's something else that's exciting with the same client that you've worked with for years and years, and it's really, I think it's what I was meant to do.
For sure, a calling, it seems like, and we can confirm that because y'all are working hard at all times in my inbox, and I love it. I love it. It's always great content, for sure.
Yeah.
We like to ask a lot of times, what are the gray areas of what you do if someone is interested? Because I feel like it's really an amazing spot right now where a lot of younger people are thinking about going into PR and marketing and all this kind of behind the scenes world that we've been talking about. What advice and what gray areas do you think there are in this industry?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And to your point, there are so many more people who are getting on the entrepreneurship bandwagon. And I had a friend not too long ago tell me, you were a pioneer I said, pioneer, I've never been called that. But 15 years ago, it was a scary journey. But I think one thing that I have learned is discomfort really brings that opportunity. And one of my favorite quotes is, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And so to do something that's going to really fuel you and feel great, it's normal to feel that fear and that discomfort. And I think, too, knowing when to invest, whether it's in your people, in a new service, in yourself. I think that's another thing. There's a gray area there. Do I push? Do I pull back? Sometimes stopping a service that's no longer serving you or your team well. We've had those conversations, and finding people who are specialists in those areas and making sure, there's nothing that gives me, greater joy than to refer out to another entrepreneur who's doing great work in that space. And so I think those are definitely some things that I would say to others, knowing when to say yes and when to say no. I was always like a yes yes, say yes to everything. That's kind of the generation I'm from. That's what our parents taught us. And now I'm seeing, and I admire this in people who are younger, in the younger generation coming into the workforce. And I see it even in my boys. And, knowing when to say no and kind of having those boundaries. I think that's something we don't necessarily have the most healthy boundaries because we were just told to keep going, push on, do it all, you know?
I'm finding too that sometimes in the marketing industry, people don't know how to say no comfortably. I'm so glad that you touched on you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, but how specifically do you say no? Can you give our listeners some examples of some professional boss ways to say no?
Gosh, yes. It's funny because I keep a list of like draft emails sometimes when I have things that are similar topics, but one of them is like saying no to a client that's not a fit and being able to refer them out, or saying no to an ask to serve on a volunteer board. And I think a good example is I have been asked to serve on many volunteer boards over the years, and it's given me a lot of great joy. But one thing I don't like to do is overextend myself. And I will say, I thank you so much. I appreciate you asking me at this time. I just don't feel like I could give it my 100%. And then I will give them a couple of other names of people who I think would be great for them to reach out to, because I truly think they're looking for somebody who's going to be all in to their organization, not just 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We've all been in those meetings where one of the committee members doesn't come and they're not really giving their time, and I don't want to be seen as one of those people. And I think too, when it comes to clients that aren't a fit, sometimes it's a timing issue simply that we don't have the capacity to take it on, and their timing's immediate right then, or their budget's not really realistic. And so saying, a budget for this looks a little more like X, we could rethink that or scale it back, but just being able to say no in a way that kind of gives them the why. I think that's what I've learned. People don't just like the word no.
Right.
They kind of like a no, but here's why.
Yes.
And for me, that has helped me not feel like I'm letting someone down, is to actually be able to give them another solution or a referral out, or maybe not now, but later. That's happened. I've said no, but maybe in another year or so, that would be a good time for me.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm sure that keeps the door open for a future partnership.
Absolutely. It's kind of funny. It's been a while, but I even had a client that I could tell just wasn't a cultural fit, and I never want to, shut the door on a relationship or something, but it just wasn't a fit. And so finding a very good, constructive way to say that was not easy, but I was proud of myself for doing it rather than taking on a new client that wasn't a good fit for us and our team.
As a people pleaser, I just needed to hear that.
It is.
Because it's so hard when you're asked to do all of that kind of stuff, but even like by family members, like it doesn't have to just be business, but just it's okay to say no. I think for a lot of us, we just have to remind ourselves that.
Yeah,
so
and I'm the same way, and I think that does create, I think, some of the hardest like emotional stress on women, is that we do feel like we have to say yes to all the things for our children's classrooms. A long time ago, I said, look, I'll bring whatever you want me to, but I'm not cooking anything. It doesn't give me joy. I'll show up, I'll bring a pan from, Fusakli's or wherever, or Publix cookies, but I don't bake good. You don't want my baking. I'm not a bad cook, but that's just not what we say yes to sometimes. And that took me a long time to figure out. A long time. I do wish I'd learned that one a lot sooner.
Yeah, me too. And just on the lines of not being perfect, I'm in that space. Just yesterday, I had to walk something back because I'd overextended myself, and I had to have a conversation with someone on a commitment that I had made, not understanding just how much that it was going to require of me. And so sometimes that happens too.
It does.
So how do you have that conversation if you have already overextended yourself and now you have to pull back?
Yeah, it happened a couple of years ago. I had been asked to serve on a board of an organization that I have been part of in the past, but once I got into it and started attending the meetings, I realized, whoo, this is like a heavy lift. They're wanting a lot from me, like a full comms plan. Like, this is really more the work of a paid consultant or a staff member or something like that. I just did not have the time to give to it. And I didn't want to let them down, but kind of being honest about that and just sharing kind of where I was, it was just, it actually felt freeing after I did it. I toiled over it a long time before I could get the courage to, for several weeks before I said, look, I'm just going to have to, make this decision, and walk it back. Like you said, that's hard to do. So I think for me, recognizing those before, but in that situation, I loved the organization. I had no idea what the ask was going to be. Right. So being able to kind of set some realistic expectations of even your role as a volunteer.
Yes.
Right. Before we go, I got to ask you, what does the 5 mean on your necklace?
Oh,
so
thank
curious.
you. It's my lucky number. So it's funny because I saw a friend and she had, I think it was a number 3, and I was like so curious about it. And I started thinking, I don't have a lucky number. And then I started realizing that things have always happened in my life in 5s. I was born in the 5th month. My husband and I dated for 5 years before we got married. We were married for 5 years before we had children. Let's see, we have 5 people in our family. There were several other crazy. I started my business in the 5th month of 2010. It's crazy. So I was like, wait, I do have one. It's number 5. So I ran out and bought it immediately.
It's so cute.
Thank you.
It's so cute.
I get so many questions about it.
Right.
It's a conversation starter for sure.
Because oftentimes you see an initial or and assume it's yours or somebody you love.
Yeah.
But the number, I've never seen a number. It's so cute.
Thank
I
you.
love it.
Thank you.
I'm starting to think that maybe we should air this on November the 5th. I don't know.
I love it.
Maybe we should.
I love it.
Well, it has been such an
Yes.
honor and a pleasure talking to
me
you.
too.
Thank you so much for coming by and chatting with us. I know that what we talked about is going to be so relatable to a lot of women, a lot of leaders. So thank you. for
Thank
listening.
you so
Thank
much for your
y'all. It
time.
was just so fun being with y'all.
Yes.
you.
And we wish you all the best in all the things. Yes.
Thank you.
This episode of Entrepreneurial Shades of Gray is brought to you by Honest Air Plumbing and Electric.